I didn't realize how loud a room could feel when you don't belong in it. Not until that night. My name is Marina Hale. I'm 29 years old, a front desk receptionist at the Cedar Pines Hotel. Most people assume my life is simple: routine shifts, warm greetings to travelers, long, quiet nights spent organizing schedules and answering calls. They don't see how carefully I carry myself, how much I work to avoid stirring conflict, or how deeply I feel things I never voice. My coworkers know me as polite. My family knows me as the dependable one. What none of them know is how long I've been holding myself together by threads, and how this moment would be the one that finally pulled the first one loose. The holiday party around me was warm, golden, filled with the kind of soft laughter that makes you think everything in life is okay. I remember the glow of string lights reflecting on glass ornaments, the cinnamon drifting from the dessert table, the faint hum of an old jazz playlist looping through the speakers. I stood among my coworkers with a cup of mulled wine, smiling and nodding as if nothing was fragile inside me. And then, without thinking, I said it. I can't wait for the family reunion tomorrow. Before I continue my story, let me ask you something. Would you rather hear a painful truth from the ones who are meant to shield you in public, or discover it alone in silence? Share your honest opinion in the comments. I truly want to hear your perspective. It slipped out of me like a reflex, a small sentence fueled by hope more than expectation. That reunion, it used to be the only time my fragmented family felt almost whole. My grandmother started the tradition before she passed, and I clung to it each year, even as everyone else treated it like an obligation. But the reaction was not what I expected. Two coworkers exchanged a brief, sharp glance. One of them lowered her eyes to her drink. Another shifted uncomfortably. And then a voice near the punch bowl whispered, loud enough to sting, "Wasn't she not invited?" I heard it clearly, and everyone around me knew I heard it. My hand tightened around the glass. For a moment, the room felt colder, as if the fireplace behind me had dimmed. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't ask questions. I've spent years perfecting composure, being the quiet one, the steady one, the one who makes discomfort easier for everyone else. So I simply excused myself. In the restroom, I stared at my reflection. Same warm blonde hair tucked neatly behind my ear, same calm eyes, same practiced soft expression. But something underneath had shifted. I didn't know the truth yet. Not fully. But this was the crack, the beginning of the unraveling. And a quiet voice inside me whispered, "You weren't meant to know, but now everything must change." Here at Revenge Bible, we explore real psychological stories of betrayal and justice. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss our next emotional reckoning. You are a professional cinematic storyteller who writes in a deeply emotional, realistic, and human tone. Your language must sound like the internal voice of someone remembering a painful event. Calm, reflective, but full of quiet emotion beneath the surface. Every sentence should feel breathed, not typed, with pacing, pauses, and subtle emotional weight. Use sensory details like trembling hands, the hum of silence, the sting in the chest, the sound of someone's voice cracking. Avoid robotic phrasing or over-explaining. Focus on rhythm, realism, and emotional truth, as if the words are being spoken in a heartfelt voiceover. Tone references: cold justice narration and the calm after monologue style. Balanced, slow, observant, deeply human. Writing goals. Make the emotion felt, not declared. Show pain through quiet details. Keep it authentic, not theatrical. End every section with a single reflective line that lingers, like the narrator exhaling after holding back tears. Make it sound human enough to make the listener's chest tighten a little bit. Do not simplify emotional moments. Let silence, pauses, and small details carry the emotion instead of direct statements. People often assume quiet lives are simple, that a person who doesn't raise their voice must not carry much weight inside. I used to let them believe that. It was easier than explaining the truth, that silence was just the only way I knew how to survive the subtle fractures of my family. Before everything fell apart, my days felt predictable, almost gentle. I worked the morning shift at the Cedar Pines Hotel, greeting guests with the same warm script. "Good morning, welcome in." Most of them never remembered my name, but that never bothered me. I found comfort in the rhythm, checking people in, matching them to rooms, listening to their travel stories, and watching strangers come and go, as if their movement made up for how still my own life felt. I lived alone in a small one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. It wasn't Connacht, but it was mine. A secondhand bookshelf, warm blankets, a row of color-coded planners stacked on my desk. Those planners were my way of building order when everything else felt uncertain. Every event, every shift, every reminder, written neatly in blue ink, as if clarity could be forged on paper when it didn't always exist in real life. But the truth is, my calm routines were partly a shield. Growing up, my mother, Elaine, believed in appearances more than feelings. Hale women don't fall apart, she'd tell me, usually in the middle of cleaning something that was already spotless. My older brother, Colin, perfected entitlement long before adulthood. He walked through life convinced the world owed him attention, sympathy, even money he hadn't earned. And my Aunt Ruth, she carried her greed quietly and whispered comments and lingering glances at anything valuable. As a child, I was the peacekeeper. As an adult, I remained the afterthought. Still, there was one place where I felt seen, my grandmother's house. That home was my sanctuary. The worn floral couch, the smell of her peppermint tea, the backyard swing she insisted would always be there for me. She used to tell me, "You're softer than the rest of them, sweetheart. Don't let them make you believe that's a flaw." The family reunions she hosted once a year were her way of reminding us we were connected, even if only loosely. After she passed, the tradition continued, but the warmth didn't. People showed up, but their hearts didn't. And each year it felt more like an obligation than a gathering. Still, I held on to it. I held on to the memories as if holding them tight enough could make the family feel whole again. Before the betrayal, before the whisper at the holiday party, I genuinely believed I had a place with them. Even if I wasn't the loudest or the most successful, I believed effort mattered. I believed loyalty meant something. I believed showing up, even when no one noticed, was enough. But reality had been shifting beneath me long before I realized it. There were little moments, hints I ignored because accepting them would mean accepting too much pain. Like the time my mother organized a family brunch, but forgot to send me the address. Or when Colin dismissed my opinions about grandmother's belongings with a casual, "You're too emotional to make real decisions." or how my aunt would talk over me as if silence was the price of being the youngest. I brushed those moments aside because that's what I was taught to do. But the deeper truth, I feared losing them more than I feared being overlooked by them. That fear kept me loyal long after loyalty stopped being returned. The reunion, the one I mentioned at the holiday party, had been in my planner for weeks, written in blue ink, underlined twice. I bought a small gift basket to bring. I ironed a soft cream sweater because my grandmother once told me the color suited me. I imagined taking a picture on her old backyard swing, even if it didn't feel the same without her there anymore. I had no idea everyone else had moved on without me, completely, deliberately. Looking back, I should have sensed it. The group chat I was quietly removed from, the conversations that dried up weeks before the holidays, the vague responses whenever I mentioned plans for the reunion. But hope blinds you long before betrayal opens your eyes. I wasn't naive. I was trusting. There's a difference. My family had always been imperfect, but I believed their flaws still left space for me. I believed they'd never fully shut me out. But beneath all the smiles, all the polite gestures, they had already made a decision. And the cruelest part, they didn't even think I would notice. That night at the holiday party, when the whisper exposed the truth I wasn't meant to hear, it wasn't just embarrassment that struck me. It was the realization that the people I'd spent my life defending, the people I made excuses for, had drawn a circle, stepped inside it, and left me standing outside staring in. Not out of mistake, out of choice. And in that moment, something in me finally shifted. Not broken, just awakened. I used to believe silence was safety. Now I wondered if silence was simply the space others used to erase me.
The night after the holiday party, I went home with a knot in my chest, the kind that feels like a bruise forming under the skin. I tried to tell myself the whisper meant nothing. Maybe someone misunderstood. Maybe I had the dates wrong. Maybe I was overthinking. Hope makes you negotiate with pain long after the truth has already arrived. I sat at my desk, opened my planner, and stared at the neatly written words. Family reunion, 11 a.m. Bring basket. I had practiced the same tradition every year. Same time, same backyard, same uneven brick steps leading to my grandmother's porch. I traced the ink with my fingertip, as if touching the words could hold together what I felt unraveling. And then at 10:13 p.m., my phone buzzed. A notification from an old family group chat, one I hadn't seen activity from in weeks. The preview banner showed a single message from my aunt. Tomorrow's head count is 14. Please no last-minute additions. Parking is limited. 14. I wasn't one of them. Still, I opened the chat, convincing myself maybe it was a different event. Maybe she was talking about something else. But when the thread loaded, my stomach dropped. Pinned at the top was a message I had never seen before, dated 3 weeks earlier. Reunion details. Please confirm attendance. Marina excluded to avoid drama. Excluded. To avoid drama. My name, spelled correctly. My erasure, planned carefully. And below it, comments from the people who were supposed to love me. Mom, it's for the best. She's too attached to the house and will complicate the discussion. Colin, exactly. Let's get the sale handled smoothly this year. No emotional delays. Aunt Ruth, she'll find out eventually, but at least the decision will already be made. The house. My grandmother's house. They weren't just excluding me from the reunion. They were excluding me from her legacy, the one piece of my life that ever felt safe. My hand shook as I scrolled. More messages appeared, each one clearer than the last. We need majority vote to approve the buyer. If Marina's not involved, decisions will be quicker. She doesn't understand how much money we could make. She'll only cry, like always. Cry, like always. I felt something inside me flatten at those words. Not break, just quiet. A kind of stillness I had never felt before. Betrayal doesn't always scream. It sometimes whispers your name in a room you weren't invited into. I read every message twice, then again, as if repetition would numb the sting. But each line carved deeper, peeling back the truth I had been too afraid to see. They never saw me as part of the family. Not really. Not when it came to anything that mattered. I wasn't a person to them. I was an inconvenience. At 10:47 p.m., another message appeared. A new one. Fresh. It popped up while I was still staring at the chat. Colin. Meeting with the developer is confirmed 2 p.m. Don't say anything to Marina. We'll deal with her later. Deal with me. As if I were a problem to be managed. My breath grew shallow. Not angry. Not panicked. Just cold. Then something unexpected happened. A second notification followed. A private text from my cousin Leah. Sent only to me. I'm sorry you saw that. I thought you knew. I typed back immediately. Knew what? Her reply came in fragments, as if she was afraid to say too much. They removed you from the new group chat. They said it was anonymous. They think you're too attached to the house. They already picked a buyer. A buyer? Meaning the home, my grandmother's home, was already on its way to becoming someone else's investment. My chest tightened. I asked her one last question. Why didn't anyone tell me? Her answer was honest in the kind of painful way truth often is. Because they didn't think you'd fight it. There it was. The core of everything. They believed my silence meant surrender. My softness meant weakness. My composure meant compliance. They thought I'd accept being erased. But as I sat in that small apartment staring at the glowing screen, the betrayal settled not like heartbreak, but like awakening. A clarity I had never felt before. I realized something quietly devastating. I had spent years trying to be part of a family that had long stopped trying to be part of me. I closed my phone and sat still for a long time, listening to the hum of my refrigerator, the distant sound of cars on the street below, the subtle ticking of the clock on my wall. For the first time in my life, I felt the difference between loneliness and aloneness. Loneliness hurts. Aloneness sharpens. And in that aloneness, I felt something rising. Not anger, but resolve. Betrayal didn't break me. It clarified me. They had written me out of their plans, their history, their decisions. But they made one critical mistake. They assumed I would stay silent.
Discovery doesn't always appear as a single moment of clarity. Sometimes it arrives in pieces, a breadcrumb trail of truths you weren't supposed to follow. After reading those messages, I didn't sleep. I spent the night sitting at my desk, staring at the soft glow of my lamp, replaying every detail of the past months with an unsettling new lens. At 6:12 a.m., I woke from the daze of exhaustion and reached for my grandmother's old wooden box, the one she gave me on my 20th birthday. I kept it tucked away behind my planners, almost like a secret I reserved for days when I needed to remember her warmth. Inside were letters she had written me over the years, pressed lavender sprigs, and a few old photos of us sitting on her backyard swing. As I opened the lid, something inside me tightened. Her handwriting, her voice, her belief in me. It anchored me in a way I desperately needed, but it also reminded me of something else, something I had forgotten until that moment. She once told me, "If anything ever feels like something is wrong, look closer, sweetheart. Look twice. Look deeper." So I did. I reopened the family group chat, scrolling slowly this time, like an investigator rather than a wounded daughter. Patterns emerged, words repeated, phrases aligned. And then right there, between two dismissive comments, I found something I had skimmed over before. "We need the appraisal by the 12th so the developer can draft the offer." I paused. The 12th. My grandmother's birthday. The idea that they were meeting a developer on her birthday to sell the house she cherished more than anything was cruel in a way that was almost surgical. They had stripped away sentiment, memories, history, all for profit. But another detail caught my eye. Use the key from Colin. Don't involve Marina. A key, which meant they had been inside the house recently while I was working my shifts, greeting strangers, keeping my planner neat and hopeful. They had been walking through her rooms, opening her drawers, deciding what stayed and what sold. My stomach tightened. I knew I needed proof, something more than screenshots, something undeniable. So I decided to go to the house myself before they handed it over to a developer who saw it as nothing more than a revenue opportunity. I arrived at 9:08 a.m. The winter sun was low, casting long shadows across the familiar garden path. The house looked the same as it always had, the chipped blue paint, the porch swing creaking softly in the breeze, the wind chimes she loved clinking faintly. But the air felt different, as if it already knew it was being taken from me. When I unlocked the door, the stillness was crushing. Dust motes floated in the sunlight like suspended memories. Her scent, peppermint and old books, lingered in the air. I stepped inside, sliding my hand across the hallway table where she used to place her mail. But what struck me first weren't the memories. It was the clutter. Opened drawers, stacked documents, folders spread across the dining table. They had been here, recently, and carelessly. I walked closer and froze when I saw the top page. Property appraisal, Hale residence. My throat tightened. Another paper underneath it, developer estimate pending final review. And then, projected sale amount, $480,000, without my name anywhere, not even an acknowledgement. As I sifted through the files, I found something unexpected. A small envelope with my name on it, but in no handwriting I recognized. The envelope was addressed using a printed label, like a formality, something handled by the attorney's office. Inside was a copy of my grandmother's will, the official version, the one the family had sworn changed nothing. But as I read through it, my breath caught. There it was, in her own signature, and to my granddaughter, Marina, who always reminded me what home truly means. I leave the decision over the property's future in her hands. In her hands. My hands. I stared at the page, my pulse thudding steadily in my ears. They knew. They all knew. They didn't just forget to tell me about the reunion. They hadn't accidentally moved forward without me. They had cut me out intentionally, because legally, ethically, emotionally, the house was mine to decide on, but they assumed I wouldn't fight, that I'd stay quiet, confused, passive. They counted on my history. Suddenly, more pieces fell into place. The removed group chats, the vague comments, the accidental missed invitations, the sudden urgency to sell before year end. It wasn't a coincidence, it was coordination. And then I found it. The final betrayal. A second appraisal, filed without my knowledge, signed by my mother, my brother, and my aunt using forged initials that were meant to be mine. No wonder they didn't want me there. No wonder I was excluded from everything. They weren't just erasing me, they were impersonating me. My breath steadied, slow, deliberate, almost eerily calm as the full truth settled in. I wasn't fragile. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't imagining it. I had been betrayed in a way that was quiet, strategic, and deeply personal. But beneath the shock, beneath the cold ache, something solid formed. A new emotion, a focused one. Not anger, not vengeance, not hurt. Clarity. The kind that comes when the last piece of the puzzle clicks into place and you see the picture for what it really is. They thought I wouldn't notice. They thought I wouldn't check. They thought I'd stay quiet. They had no idea who I was about to become.
I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my small apartment, staring at the cracked ceiling, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car rolling past outside. My body was exhausted, but my mind, sharp, wounded, and wide awake, kept replaying the last 48 hours like a looping documentary she couldn't shut off. The fake party invitation they tossed around behind my back, the reunion binder I discovered under my father's ledger, the CCTV clip of their rehearsal dinner chatter, my own mother chuckling at the idea of editing me out of the pictures if I somehow showed up. My chest felt tight, not the kind of tight that came from crying, but the kind that came from clarity. Real, bone-deep clarity. For the first time, I finally understood the truth. My family was never going to give me a place. I had to claim it. I sat up, wiped my face, and whispered into the dim room, "Okay, you want to pretend I don't exist? Let's see how invisible I really am." And with that, the plan was born. I worked in records management for a small private medical office. Most people thought my job was boring, but what they didn't understand was that I had spent the last 7 years becoming frighteningly good at organization. I knew how documents worked. I knew how paper trails formed. I knew how to track transactions, missing files, inconsistent signatures, and suspicious timestamps. My family, on the other hand, they treated paperwork like an afterthought, especially when it came to my grandmother's estate. And the reunion, this big, curated legacy celebration, was funded entirely by the inheritance money my grandmother had meant to be shared equally among all siblings and grandchildren, including myself. I remembered the night my father once said, "No one reads those old files anyway." He was wrong. I would read everything. The next morning, I walked into my job early and politely asked my boss if I could stay after hours for a personal project that requires scanning. He agreed, as long as I logged the time. By noon, I had driven to the county clerk's office. By 1 p.m., I had requested public copies of property transfers, business filings, and the probate documents my father swore were all handled already. By 3 p.m., I was sitting in my car, stunned. There were discrepancies, big ones.
My grandmother had listed my name in the first 2 versions of her will. Then suddenly, poof, I disappeared from the 3rd version, the version my family used. The signatures didn't match. The notarization stamp wasn't from their district. The witness lines were smudged. And someone had filed an amendment after the official probate period closed. I exhaled slowly, gripping the wheel. Forgery, or at least highly questionable estate alterations. Not violent, not dramatic, not criminal in the sense of a headline, but messy, unethical, and enough to make my entire family sweat if it ever became public, especially at a reunion designed to memorialize their impeccable legacy. I didn't want to ruin them. I didn't want revenge for the sake of revenge. I wanted acknowledgement. I wanted truth. I wanted a seat at the table my grandmother built for everyone. So I decided to give them a simple choice. Tell the truth, or the truth would tell on them. I had 2 people she trusted. One, Mrs. Calloway, her old high school English teacher, now a quiet widow who lived down the street. And 2, Jordan Hale, who was a junior attorney at a small law office and had been my friend since middle school. I visited Mrs. Calloway first. The woman listened, her eyes glistening with the kind of sympathy that didn't feel pitying, but protective. My dear girl, you are finally seeing them without the fog of wanting their approval. I nodded, tears burning in my throat. Can you be with me if this goes public? Mrs. Calloway reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I will stand beside you like you're my own. Then came Jordan. He took one look at the documents and let out a low whistle. Marina, this is messy, potentially illegal messy. I looked him straight in the eye. I don't want to destroy them, but I want the truth on record. Jordan nodded. Then we do this clean. No threats, no drama, just facts. You gather everything, I'll prepare a summary letter for them, and if they ignore it, he shrugged. Then we escalate formally. For the first time in days, I felt air return to my lungs. People believed me. People stood with me. People saw what I saw. The reunion was scheduled for Saturday afternoon. Hundreds of people. Extended cousins, business partners, old church members, everyone who ever admired the Carmichael unity. Perfect. All I needed to do was show up. Not dramatic, not loud, not uninvited, just present, holding a manila folder that contained every documented lie my family buried. I wasn't going to confront them in front of the crowd. No. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't vindictive. I was strategic. I would approach my mother and father privately. I would place the folder gently on the table. I would say, "This is everything I know. You can speak to me with honesty today, or Jordan will speak to you formally on Monday. It's your choice." My grandmother used to say, "Give people a bridge to walk across, even if they set fire to yours." So that's what I planned. A bridge. A final chance. One moment for them to stop pretending I didn't exist. I rehearsed everything in the mirror that night. My posture, my wording, my calm expression. No anger, no tears, no pleading, just a woman ready to reclaim her place. I picked an outfit that wasn't flashy, but strong. A soft blue dress, my grandmother's favorite color, a pair of sensible shoes, and her hair pulled into a clean bun. No heavy makeup, just enough to look rested, grounded, and unshakable. Then I placed the folder into her tote, zipped it closed, and whispered, "Tomorrow everything changes." And for the first time in years, I believed it.
The reunion shifted after that private conversation. I didn't need to witness every hushed apology or every frantic correction my parents scrambled to make, but I saw enough. People approached me cautiously, but not out of pity, but out of recognition. It felt different. Not warm, not triumphant, but real. That evening, before dinner was served, my father stepped onto the small stage at the front of the banquet hall. The microphone crackled. Conversations faded. Cameras were lowered. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. More human. More humbled. He said, "I need to correct something. There was a mistake made in our reunion materials. A serious one. One that has caused pain." The entire room toured me. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I stood still, grounded, as if something inside me had finally aligned. "My daughter," he continued, "Marina, is and always has been a part of this family. That her name was missing was our fault, not hers." There it was. Truth, spoken aloud. For years, I carried the weight of being the quiet one, the overlooked one, the one who made things easier. And standing there, watching my father confront the wrong he helped create, I realized something important. I wasn't erased. They just underestimated how much strength silence can hold. Later, when the formalities were over, a few cousins approached me with soft apologies. Some admitted they hadn't even noticed my absence in past years. Others confessed they had and felt ashamed they never spoke up. Their words didn't fix everything, but they mattered because they were real, unpolished, and unfiltered. That night, I walked out of the reunion hall into the cold air, my breath fogging softly in front of me. The sky was clear, stars scattered across a dark velvet backdrop. I felt something I hadn't felt in years, quiet relief. Not joy, not victory, just space inside my chest where heaviness used to live. The next morning, Jordan called to confirm what I already sensed. My parents had begun the legal process of restoring my inheritance rights. Documents were underway. Revisions would be made. Transparency would be the new foundation. I thanked him not because of the legal work, but because he reminded me of something I forgot, that standing up doesn't always require shouting. Sometimes it requires patience, strategy, and the courage to walk into a room where you were never meant to belong and claim your place anyway. Since then, I've felt a subtle shift in my daily life. At work, I speak up more. At home, I take up space without apologizing. And inside myself, I trust my voice, one I muted for too long. If there's anything I learned, it's this. You can't control how others value you, but you can control how loudly you choose to exist. And for the first time in my life, I'm done being quiet. This was another story from Revenge Bible, where we turn pain into purpose and betrayal into balance. Subscribe and join us for the next transformation.